Well, as you guys know, Donald Trump is picking his cabinet members right now. Some of them I'm going to say are amazing picks. I'm super excited about Vivek, Elon Musk, RFK, Tom, and many others. He's doing a great job, but there are some others that I'm actually a little worried about. One of those being a sheriff. So on today's broadcast, I wanted to bring on someone in the know who was a sheriff in the past from about 1988, I want to say, to 1996. And he was Graham County here in Arizona, but he's got a lot of inside information on what's going on regarding all of that. And not only that, but as you know, those on the far left and the Democrats are doing everything in their power to stop Donald J. Trump, especially his entire plan regarding the border. They are desperate to keep our borders open, even at the risk of criminals and terrorists getting in. And thank God we finally got somebody in to stop that. So with me on the broadcast today, I've brought former Sheriff Richard Mack. Are you with me over there?
I am, Lisa. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for coming on the show. Tell everybody a little bit about who you are.
Okay, well, I was in law enforcement for 20 years. I graduated from the FBI National Academy in 1991. That's not to be an FBI agent. That's a special invite for law enforcement professionals across the country that the FBI does. It's an 11-week academy at the same place where they train new FBI agents. And my father was an FBI agent, so I wanted to go and do that. But I did everything in law enforcement imaginable, anything and everything you've seen on TV, except I've never beat anybody up and I never shot anybody. And I had a lot of pride in doing that, and I brag about it now because there were times I should have shot somebody, and I really was very patient. I didn't want to do it, and I didn't. I was still very high in arrests, and I was very fair and honest with people. And so I specialized in crimes against children. I was a school resource officer. I was an undercover narcotics officer, which really taught me a lot. You don't go out and live on the streets for a year away from your family, your wife and children, and not learn a lot about the drug scene and the drug world. I'm one of few sheriffs nationwide that has crawled through the drug smuggling tunnels along the Arizona border and ridden the machine gun boats on the Rio Grande near McAllen, Texas. I've lived near the border my whole life. I was a sheriff just one county away from the border. And I will tell you, I know the border. I know the cartels. I know the problem with drugs. And I know what Trump is up against. I've already been in contact with Tom Homan. I'm thrilled that Tom is there. And we need more tough people like Tom and Trump grabbing hold of this problem and fixing it. If I were to say the most important thing, one thing, the most important thing that I could tell the American people after this red wave and this tremendous Trump victory, I would say this. Thomas Jefferson told us and warned us that the price of liberty is eternal vigilance. We cannot get complacent and thinking everything's fine now because Trump's in. We have to be working with him. We have to keep him safe. The sheriffs of this country have got to have his back. And if we're going to get this deportation to happen and to be successful and fair with it, the sheriffs of this country have got to be involved in the process and working together with Homan and Trump to make sure it happens. The military can be used, but only at the border. And that's where they should go to stop the bleeding so that we can get the rest of it handled.
And I can't say I disagree with that at all. I mean, put them on the border, get it handled, finish building that wall. And we know, when Joe Biden got into office, he tossed all the trillions or billions of dollars, whatever the exact number was. I'm blanking, but I think it was billions of dollars that he had spent and ready on the border. And it's just been insanity ever since. As you know, the Biden administration has been suing like states like Texas and other states to remove their fencing. Thank God they failed. But now we have, as you said, Tom Homan coming in, and I feel that he's going to do an amazing job. And we still have some roadblocks from some of those. Unfortunately, we still have radical left sheriffs and Democrat leaders that are going to fight this tooth and nail. And the truth is, our country is destroyed. Like you talked about, you were climbing and going through the tunnels, and these are drug tunnels, trafficking tunnels, and the fentanyl that has come into our country is just insane. So I guess let's start with this, regarding our U.S. border, regarding, what's going on there. How bad would you say it truly is? And is it much worse than, say, the average person who's not exposed to it thinks it is? If you get where I'm going with that question.
Yes, it's absolutely much worse. It's much worse. The cartels are here and set up shop. The cartels are in charge of the border. International terrorists, every terrorist group that is an enemy to America has now infiltrated America. They're here. What do you think they're doing here? They're waiting for the most opportune time to attack us. The intel training that I've been to and the other sheriffs have been to shows that they're going to actually attack our grid and our water supply. So folks, be aware of that. But again, folks, do not be complacent. We certainly aren't. We have a lot of work to do, and we invite all of you to work with your sheriff, form a posse with him, or if he already has one, become a part of it so that he has a Minuteman posse ready at his disposal anytime he needs it, with people that are trained and know what to do and are humble enough to be taught. And we provide all of that at cspoa.org. We train you to work with your sheriff so that you can work with him.
I love that. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to bring you on, because it's a volunteer thing, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. And a lot of times I get from you listeners out there, like, how can I help? How can I get involved? This is one easy way that you can get involved just by sharing your time. You go, hey, I want to help in some way, shape, or form, volunteer work. Go to cspoa.org. I'm going to throw that link on the description box. But that's one way that you can really get involved instead of just saying, hey, the border's a problem. Yeah, we have an issue. Well, if you're one of those who can devote that time, definitely look you up and get involved. This is one way in which we can do it. And the other thing is, you said that it's way more severe today. Even I think it's gotten way worse under the Biden administration. You mentioned that because we don't have this protection at this time. And look, Donald Trump, we're still going to have threats when Donald Trump gets into office because the damage is done until we get some of that deportation happening. And he said very clearly he's going to start with the traffickers, he's going to start with the drug dealers, he's going to start with the criminals. And I think that's going to be the majority of his focus, at least in the first section of that. And this is good because we have terrorists and everything under the sun in the country. I mean, these are things that have come across the border. And you're not wrong when you say that they could very well go after things. And these are two things that they've went after before, right? Our water supply and our power grid. They have already been known to go after like transformers and put those out. I know I used to work in kind of that electric company industry, and those things are really expensive to fix. And you've heard a lot about, these attacks on the transformers and stuff in the news. But these are real threats that we're facing, correct? You would agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of funny, coincidental. I wrote a novel. I've written several books, 7 or 8 books. One was a novel, the only novel I've ever written. I've written freedom books and books about sheriffs and the proper role of law enforcement. And Are You a David? The Magic of Gun Control. This is the most important book I have, and every single person in this country, every American should have that book in their home, in their car, in their pocket. It fits right here in your shirt pocket. It's only 16 pages long, but it's about my Supreme Court case. I was the first sheriff in American history to sue the federal government while I was sheriff, take it all the way to the Supreme Court and win. This is the most powerful 10th Amendment decision in the history of our country, written by Justice Scalia. And folks, you've got to see this for yourself. They're only $2 each. You get 3 for 5. Get a bunch of them, hand them out to your local officials, hand them out to your friends, and make sure this gets put out there because nobody knows about this case. And yet it was one of the most important cases in the history of our country. So get it. It's called, can you see it there? Yeah, get that title, look at it. When you go on my website, get that. Most important thing you can do, okay? And there's little markup in that. The book is $2. What? There's nothing there. I want you to have it. I want you to get it, okay? So the whole purpose of all of this is how we're going to make things work and how we're going to make Trump very successful. If we're not working together, it's not going to work. And if the sheriffs aren't involved, it's not going to work. So there's a lot of people on the left. There's sheriffs, mayors right here in Arizona. The Phoenix mayor said she's not going to cooperate, not going to allow people to be taken out of their homes, and blah, blah, blah. Well, Phoenix, the last time I checked, was in Maricopa County. And the Maricopa County sheriff does not have to check with you, Mayor. Okay, that's in his county. Everybody in Phoenix voted for him, and so he's going to do his job. And the sheriffs across this country have got to be doing their job. The deportation won't work if we don't.
No, it won't. And let me just add this, because I know you've got a little bit of sway on both sides of the fence, but like the truth of the matter is they came here illegally. It was illegal. It was wrong. It was against the crime. The second big problem, it is a crime. The second problem I have with it is there are people doing it the legal way, paying lots of money to do that, and it just isn't fair, and it's encouraging people to do it the illegal way. The third thing I have is they're not being vetted. They're just letting people in. You can fill out this app now on the phone, and it doesn't even have to be accurate. They're not vetting. They're not checking. And this has allowed an explosion of crime. And like I said, Donald Trump's going to focus on the worst of the worst and all of that first. But the problem is it's really gotten out of hand, unlike we have ever seen in our history, which is why I think Donald Trump pretty much got his red wave. Now, with that, you brought up how he needs the help of the sheriffs, and not just, his plan for deportation, but also his plan to restore our security at our borders. And I think that's one of also the most important things, because we need that security. Now, you mentioned off camera, right? We had kind of a discussion, but Chad Chronister, one of Trump's picks, which we're not too happy about. Can you explain what's going on there?
Well, Chad Chronister does not believe in his oath of office. He's a rhino Republican. He donates to Democrats and to the DNC.
Oh, tell him what he was nominated for. I left that off.
He was nominated to be the director of the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Administration. He's not very well known. He's not popular. But the ones that do know him, especially in the Tampa area of Florida, anybody who believes in freedom cannot stand him. I've tried to make contact with him to talk to him about what he did in 2020 or 2021. He arrested Pastor Rodney Howard-Browne for having church. And there was no law that said these were mandates. They were not legislated laws. And so he took it upon himself to make up some charge criminally. And then he called a press conference the next day and bragged how he arrested this good pastor. I've been there. I've talked to him. This is a great church, great pastor. And the thing of it is, the charges were dismissed. And so Chronister's just trying to hang on to his pride. And say, yeah, but he exposed everybody to danger. Those people went to the church on their own. The pastor didn't force them to come there. And not only that, none of them got sick. And you, sir, should have apologized to this man. And instead, you doubled down and brag about arresting him. And so, first of all, he's got lots of other problems. He's a leftist liberal. He's dishonest, and he's a horrible sheriff. And he thinks that a COVID mandate supersedes the First Amendment to the United States Constitution, an oath that he took and swore that he would uphold and defend. He violated that, and now how in the world he got to this point, I don't know. Because there's lots of good sheriffs in Florida, and lots of good sheriffs in this country. And I'm glad Trump is looking at a sheriff, but he needs to look elsewhere, big time. So we've already written a letter about this, a press conference, and we said Mr. Trump needs to take a mulligan on his choice for DEA director. And it's on the internet. A lot of people are agreeing that Chad Chronister should not be part of his administration.
And I agree with you wholeheartedly. I have faith in all of that. Now, Donald Trump's done pretty good. I mean, I'm not happy with all his picks. I'm not too happy with Marco Rubio, obviously, and a couple others. But this would be one. So far, he has done good in other aspects. But there's always going to be a few, I guess, that fall through the cracks, so to speak. And I do believe that he's one. So definitely get a message out to Trump for all you listeners out there, because, I'm not too confident in this one, especially if we're looking for Donald Trump to fulfill his plan and all of that. But hopefully Tom Homan can kind of ring him in line somewhat regarding that. But I guess ultimately, overall, where do you think we're headed under the Trump administration with everything in mind? Do you think he's going to get to where he wants to get? Do you think we're going to be able to get it under control? What about all of that?
I think we can. And I think that there's going to be a lot of cooperation from the sheriffs. I think they want to help. They want this. Look, Trump won about 85% of the counties in this country. If those sheriffs understand that their counties were for Trump because of this main issue, just as you mentioned, this is the main issue people wanted. It was the border and the violence associated with that and the economy. Those were the two key issues. Trump has promised to take care of both of those. And you can't take care of the economy and be fair with the taxpayer if you continue to force them to pay for all of this. And another thing that Elon and Vivek need to stop is stop funding Planned Parenthood. So I think that should be an easy one. I sure hope they are. But with this together with the border and the economy, I think that's Trump's forte. And I think that we will do very well, especially if those 85% sheriffs cooperate and help him.
Yeah, and you're not wrong on the Planned Parenthood thing. I'm so against that. Look, I don't care how you want to see that, right? The transgender series, the Planned Parenthood, that's an optional thing, in my opinion. Same like, if I want to go get implants, or stuff in my lips, I'm going to pay for that out of my own pocket. And especially with Planned Parenthood, there's a lot of people out there who are like, I don't feel like my tax dollars should pay for something that I see as against our religion, right? And
it's an NGO. It has nothing to do with our government. It is not a government entity. It's a private organization, and we cannot be forced to pay to that.
Nope. And I agree wholeheartedly. Something that's kind of been, whether or not, whatever side of the fence you're on, it doesn't matter. The truth is you're really breaking some of those religious freedoms of people like Christians who say, hey, I don't want to fund that. That's against my religion, kind of a thing. So good point that you bring up there. I guess in conclusion, kind of like a short conclusion, with everything that is going on, I am like you. I'm very hopeful that Donald Trump can at least get a ring on it. I know we got a ring on it under his first administration. I'm kind of happy, to be honest with you, now to see where we're at, because if he had actually gotten in when Joe Biden did, say he won the presidency instead of Joe Biden, right? If that actually happened, he would have almost been a sitting duck with the House and the Senate, right? Because they weren't both Republican. But now he's got not only the popular vote, but the House and the Senate in his second run. So I guess the good side of that is I think we can get a lot done if we don't have too many rhinos in office, seeing now that he's got his second term. So I really think he's going to be able to make a stronger impact this time around versus if he had the last 4 years. So I'm super excited about that. But with that, there is still the threat of attacks in our country regarding all the crime that is already rampant here. But in conclusion, I guess, where can people get contact with you? Share the website information again. And then maybe in short, and I know this is kind of putting you on the spot, but what do you think the chances are of something happening like a grid attack or attacks on our water or some kind of terrorist attack, if you can kind of give a number?
It's too high because they're here, and people should be asking, why would they be here? It's not to play tiddlywinks or sing kumbaya at the camp out. And so we need to be prepared, and we need to be extremely cognizant of this threat from within caused by Biden and Harris and many others in Washington, D.C. And so now we've got to clean it up. And thank God that Trump got elected, but it's going to be all of us having to be involved in the process. Join us, become a part of us, or donate, or do all three at cspoa.org. This is a peaceful and effective process, and we, the sheriffs that are part of this, want to have Trump's back and want him to be successful in all of this. If the American people are involved and the sheriffs, we will be successful.
About how many sheriffs do you have involved with that?
That's a good solid 300. We've trained over 1,000 the last 8 years, and many other public officials as well. But many of those aren't in office anymore, and some have fallen away. But we have got to get the American people involved, because you're your boss. You're the sheriff's boss. He has no other supervisor. You're it. Give him a call, start working with him, and get involved in this process.
And again, that's cspoa.org if you want to check it out. I'll have the link in the description box below. And that's, you guys can volunteer your time. And like you said, they have over 300 all over the United States. So make sure you check it out. But with all of that, thank you so much, Sheriff Mack, for coming on the broadcast. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you, Lisa. Let's do it again.
Definitely, definitely. And thank you guys for listening. I'm Lisa Haven, and that was Sheriff Richard Mack signing out.